Here's a tweet that people were very excited about coming from Texans tight end Brevin Jordan on, I believe, Sunday. He tweeted this, quote, "Almost done with vacation and about to head back to Houston for off-season training. Excited to get back crafting. This is the first time since my junior year of high school having the same quarterback and offensive coordinator in back-to-back seasons." Damn, Brevin. Sounds like you have been going through it. You know what helps build a winner? Not just in football or basketball or baseball. In life, continuity. Continuity helps. Having time to mesh, to gel, it helps. These things don't happen overnight. Turnarounds. But when they do and you get to keep things together, the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, isn't leaving. Gerard Johnson, your quarterback coach, isn't leaving. It's great. But we don't always get to have continuity. Sometimes you are a holdover from a previous regime. Yeah, the general manager of the team maybe still likes you, but we're not really 100% sure about his future going forward. Who am I talking about right now? I am talking about the future of Jalen Green, shooting guard for the Houston Rockets, here in Houston. We discussed this past Friday, how Ime Udoka was heated after an embarrassing, arguably worst loss of the year loss to the completely undermanned Memphis Grizzlies to go into the All-Star break. And yeah, the Rockets are missing some guys too. But most noteworthy in that game was, one, after the game, Ime Udoka calling the Rockets the softest effing team in the league. Was also that he said a lineup change is being considered after the loss. And when you think about lineup change, you're probably going to think about a couple of the guys who were benched. We've seen a couple of times this year Alperen Şengün get benched. We've also seen Jalen Green get benched, but Green got benched in the middle of the third quarter of Thursday's game in Memphis. Third quarter. And it's not like there's somebody on the bench that's stepping in for Jalen Green that we're looking at as a potential franchise piece for the Rockets. We're talking about what? Nathan Hinton? So I think there's a lot of questions about Jalen Green's future. And you know what? I think he is a part of this. And now we have a little bit of evidence. I've been hearing some interesting things about Jalen Green's interactions with multiple people in that are on the Rockets beat. And I suppose that you could ask questions about these specific reporters, but we now have another story that has seen the light of day. I'm not going to share the other one that I know, but I don't know how many people are familiar with Roosh Williams. We've had Roosh on the show before. Roosh, I guess, has been having some very heated interactions with Jalen Green, who has been sliding into his Twitter DMs. So after this, I guess, quote from Ime Udoka about a potential lineup change for the Houston Rockets, Roosh did this, tweeting, "After the Sixers blew the Rockets out last month, Jalen Green very angrily told me, quote, 'I'm not being used properly,' end quote, and, quote, 'I'm not no sixth man.' In response to Roosh saying Cam Whitmore should start at shooting guard. By the way, he should. You got a couple of young players in this year's draft class who clearly have an edge, who clearly work hard, but more importantly than anything, when a regime change happens or something major happens, the team's success going forward, it is achieved by everybody buying in. And for the life of me, I do not know where Jalen Green gets off saying, I'm not being used properly. The sixth man thing. We all have egos. Would you want to be the first player coming off of the bench? But he is suggesting that Ime Udoka is not using him publicly. Has he said this publicly to Ime Udoka? Has he said this with some of his other Rockets teammates? I don't know the answer to those questions, but it does feel like Green is very clearly not buying in. Roosh continued by tweeting this. It'll be very interesting to see how he responds to possibly losing his spot in the starting lineup. Whether or not he's mature enough to accept and grow from it remains to be seen. I'll be honest, I'm pretty skeptical about it if this is the stuff that's coming out. Because this is not Jalen Green's only, I think, over-the-top interaction with somebody covering the Houston Rockets. This interaction also made me, continued Rouge, sincerely question how he will approach extension talks. I don't think he's going to be here next year, personally. I think we're getting to the point now where something like this comes out, and he's wondering if he's being used correctly by Ime Udoka. Get rid of him. I am all about Ime Udoka over the stars on this team right now. And by stars, I mean people that you hope will be stars eventually. Green has been a very convenient punching bag for the Rockets this season, who have been playing, for the most part, a lot better than they did last year. You can't deny it. The record is significantly better. But the inconsistency is an issue. And if Ime Udoka doesn't think that Jalen Green's buying in, buy. Because again, for a rebuild, you do need continuity. But if the continuity is not going to happen, you need everybody on the same team to buy in and to do their job and to accept their role. A lot of things can happen when people accept their role and then do their job. So this is something that we have with at least one of the rebuilds in Houston sports. And we've already seen that rebuild be successful. Texas made the playoffs. But with the Rockets going forward, I do not understand for the life of me if someone can go from Steven Silas, who, I'm sorry, directionless, rudderless, to having Ime Udoka, and you're like, oh, this guy isn't using me right. The ego you must have. And I get it, he's 21, he doesn't know any better. But, oh my God, I'm not being used properly? Well, what is the correct way to use you, dude? You're a 15% three-point shooter this month. What's the correct way? The offense is going through you. You're not a great passer. You're not really good at anything other than being able to sometimes create for yourself. But we're not playing street ball. We're not playing one-on-one here. We're in a team operation, and you're not buying in, and you're bitching and moaning because reporters are suggesting that you come off the bench, which actually might be good for your career going forward. I don't get it, Sean.
He'd be so good in the All-Star game if he could get there.
He would be.
Insane. Yeah, like you said, like continuity is good, but also ask Brevin Jordan if he wanted continuity last year with like keeping Davis Mills and Lovie Smith. It's like, no, sometimes you have to move on.
Right.
When things aren't working out, you have to move on.
But to Davis Mills' credit, Mills has accepted his role and has bought in, and in a couple of spots last year, did what he was asked to do, even though he got completely overlooked to be the starter for those 2 games. He did not bitch. He did not moan. I'm sure he hated it. I'm sure he was mad about it. But to his credit, the guy bought in. And I get it. It's different for a guy who was a 3rd-round draft pick versus a guy who is a top 5 draft pick in the NBA. But at the same time, man, sometimes you got to accept the reality is what it is. And you can get mad and you can kick and you can scream. But no, you got to accept the reality and buy in. Kicking and screaming is going to do nothing other than see you go elsewhere and probably have the exact same problems here until you figure it out. What, 2, 3 stops from here?
I mean, he might be able to figure out the next stop. It's just that it's going to be a situation where the way he has to figure it out is by doing what he doesn't want to do. That's the thing. It's when you go to a spot and you actually, they didn't draft you number 2 overall. Like, we don't care about this. Like, no, this is what you're gonna do, and then it's up to Jalen to do those things, and even like you said, being a 6 man. Being able to, because a lot of 6 men, the offense does run through them because all the best players aren't on the court with them. So it is a situation where he can Maybe that's where his talents are best used.
I think they are
searching. Well, and then as he's still searching for a way to like scale that up, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he still is young, but as far as his future here, you know, it kind of went from, oh, we'll see, to, well, it's like 50-50. We'll revisit, like, let's give him the rest of the year to make the call. And now, 50-something games into the season, I feel like we're all ready to make the call.
Yeah, and it's a shame that it has escalated this quickly, but a sign like this, it is a sign. And you can't say the Rockets are going to ignore this situation. They have definitely heard about this. And now what's next, I don't really know. But the odds of Jalen Green, I guess, coming hat in hand, apologizing, buying in, I am skeptical of that right now without knowing Jalen Green at all. I'm skeptical about it. And to your point, Sean, like, okay, maybe the next stop it figures it out. But right now, he sounds like a guy, just based off of this interaction that he had with Rouge, he sounds like a guy that's going to need another cold dose of reality, because if he's thinking right now, like, oh, the coach just doesn't know how to use me. Okay, so when you go to the next place, and are you going to be still saying the same thing, or are you going to look at yourself in the mirror?
Yeah, and maybe getting traded is the thing that makes him look himself in the mirror, or not getting a max extension when his rookie deal comes up. Maybe that's what's going to push him. By the way, I have less problem with him being like, I'm not a sixth man, I'm not being used properly, because I think like 75% of the guys coming off the bench in the NBA think the exact same way, who are like under 30. They all are like, look, I've been the best player my entire life. I just need more opportunity. It's the fact that you're actually going into Roosh Williams DMs to say it. That's the part where I'm like, that's what gives me the most, like, I cannot bet on this man.
And one more time, he has done this to another reporter. Like, he, in a way, like, he has responded to the criticism in I think unprofessional ways.
That to me is the worst way, or is not the worst. Yeah, right. It's the worst part about this story is not what he actually says, is the fact that he's saying it in the way that he's choosing to say it.
100%.